What is it you would recommend for, let's say, like a 10 handicap, maybe getting into single digits? That's We have a very committed golf audience here. So what would you say they should be focusing on? I know Decade, obviously we wanted to join and learn that system because it makes golf so easy. But what should they be thinking of instead of just that rangefinder number to the pin?
Yeah, I mean, the reality when you're talking about that handicap of player is that they're not going to hit the green that often, right? Like we all want our ball to end up on the green, but
It
if you look
stings
at
for
it,
them to hear it, but I'm
it
glad you
really
said it. It
does.
does because you just everyone thinks they should be better, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and like if you just look at it from a probability standpoint, their odds of hitting the green are probably lower than their odds of missing the green. So then it's pretty backwards that they're not thinking about when they miss the green, what to do.
Mm,
Like I really like using the exercise for those types of situations where I'll ask my player, I'll say, if I gave you a ball and I said you could walk up on the green and just drop a ball anywhere that's not on the green for your next shot, where would you put it?
mhm.
And they usually have a pretty like concrete or strong idea of where that is, but then they don't factor it into their shot. So it's like,
Mm.
oh, I want to be short, but then they take like two extra clubs and they go long. And it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
Um, and so that's, and then the other big thing with those players, I'll share a fun story. One of my exercises that I love doing with players for of that kind of handicap range
hmm,
is I'll go out with them and basically the joke is they're my performance monkey, right? So they're not allowed to shoot the stick or anything. All they do is they hit the yardage and the target that I call out, and that's it. And it's like I need full commitment from you. I don't care how it looks, what you think. When
sure.
I tell you to hit it 130 at this target, you try your best to do that. And so, I mean, honestly, I'm probably lying on 95% of the numbers I shoot because they just don't hit it well enough to be hitting these numbers consistent. And everybody just has this inflated idea of how far they hit the ball, right?
Yep.
And so, one good story was we're playing a wolf game and my teammate is like I would bet he is a 16 handicap, right? Like not consistent, can't really rely on him, not thrilled that he's my partner, and we're playing for like pretty decent money. So I walk over to him and I'm like, hey, I'm shooting this for you, just hit what I tell you. He's like, all
Yeah.
right, good. And so I laser it and it's like 76 yards to like a front middle pin. And I was like, okay, you got 91. He's like, 91. Looks a bit shorter than that, but I said, just trust me. All right. So he gets up there, he pulls out his whatever his 90 club is, and he hits his shot. And he ends up hitting, got lucky, it lands like 3 feet from the hole, like almost kick in range. It's like, Alex, I just knew that was my perfect 90 swing. And he still like until now he never knew that I lasered 76. But like it's just crazy because I know if he lasered 76 himself, he's pulling his lob wedge or he's trying to get cute with a little flip
Right.
wedge that he has no business hitting, and then he's like laying the sod over it or blading it over
Hmm.
the green. And so it's quite funny when you go out there and you just take away that number from their mind.
Hmm.
And like I said, I've done this probably with a dozen of my friends at my golf club that
Sure.
where I'll just literally lie to them on every shot, and then they'll go out and they'll hit more greens than they ever have before. And they're like, man, it was so easy today. I just knew I was hitting it well. And it's like you weren't really materially hitting it any bet, like maybe slightly,
Sure.
but they don't know that they were just hitting more club because that's what they should be doing because they're not factoring in like mishit dispersion, right?
Yeah, because I feel like that's the biggest thing I see too. When I just do a practice round, I always go out try and get with a buddy so I don't get three random people. So me and a friend will go out, but we'll always get paired up with different levels and different
Uh-huh.
type of golfers, and everybody misses short. Everybody thinks they hit it farther than they do, and I'm like, if you just clubbed up a little bit, if you just favored that middle of the green, it just seems so simple, but they're still trying to attack flags. They're still
Oh
trying to
yeah.
hit everything at 100%. Do you think it comes down to the wrong strategy or more? Not knowing your distances, or maybe a little bit of both.
It's a little, I mean, it's also a little bit of ego or hubris,
Hmm.
right? Most of the guys in that range aren't doing the TrackMan work to understand their true carry numbers, right? They
Yeah.
might hit, call it 10-7 irons on a TrackMan, and then they just remember the biggest number, and that's etched in their head as like, you know what? I do carry my 7 iron 160 yards, when in
Off
fact
a
it's like,
mat when you're bouncing it
yeah,
off there,
yeah,
and
exactly. And so I think it's part that. And then, I just think that it's just a funny thing that you mentioned the coming up short because at this recent event I was at, I'm walking in the fairway and talking to a couple parents while these girls are playing. And the parents just kind of, we end up, Decade comes up, and I'm telling them, I was like, yeah, I work on strategy with a lot of players, and happen to be like an uphill shot to to a front pin. And I was like,
Mm.
for example, like regardless if you're talking juniors all the way to tour pros, they just suck at front pins. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, watch. Like this girl's gonna hit a shot, and I would be pretty certain that it's gonna come up short." And you know, so sure enough, she hits her shot. It lands like 4 yards short of the pin, has a little spin, and like rolls down the hill to like 25 yards. And then, so I'm like, see, I told you, like these kids just kind of suck at front pin. And then fast forward 45 seconds later, and I'm like, so which one's your daughter? Like, oh, the one that sucks at front pins. And I was like, oh, come on, Alex. Like, could have seen this coming, you know?
That's something I would do for sure. That is exactly what I
But
would
but
do.
then I saw those parents one of the next days, and it was so funny because they came up to me and they're like, all we notice now is front pins. And sure
Hmm.
enough, whenever they play those, it's like two or three of them in the group are short. I was like, I know it's kind of crazy. It seems so basic, but then once you start noticing these types of patterns,
Hmm.
inevitably you'll see like even on tour, right? Front pins, it's statistically their greens and regulation drop off precipitously. And same thing with these college events where it's even more magnified, and you just see
Hmm.
it's like sure enough,
And
all the
these are
diff
great players. These are like
yeah.
really, yeah, it's not like they're a 10 handicap. Like you're getting college golf pros. Like, so with the average golfer, then when you do see a front pin, are you just saying, hey, add 5 yards, or what's
hmm
the strategy? Pretty much
Yeah,
just hit.
it's, I mean, when I caddy and it's a front pin, it's literally like laser, and then you just add 5 yards, and then that's like kind of, I mean, it fluctuates based off the length of the shot, right? So
Hmm.
if it's a 100-yard shot, we're probably not adding 6 or 7. But if
Okay.
it's a 200-yard shot, we're probably adding as much as 7 or 8, depending on what's short.
Hmm.
And then that's kind of what we're constructing off of, right?
Okay.
And that's just, I caddied at Q school for a girl who's on the LPGA now, and in stage one there was a pin on 17 in our first round, and these girls we're playing with were just firing at flags all day, and they're just like psycho scorecard to the max. They probably made 200 feet worth of putts, but they probably three putted 5 times, and everything was just flag hunting. And we're just kind of plodding along, right? And we get to 17, and if I remember right, it was like a 180-ish shot. So like a hybrid shot for most women. And I lasered it. It's like 180. And so we're hitting it 188, right on line with the pin. And that's that. So we do. My player hits it perfectly. And then we get back. We were riding that day. It's 125 degrees at Palm Desert. And I tell my player, it's like, okay, now watch this. Like, you're about to watch some front pin action. And sure enough, both girls just like hit these balls that are taking dead aim at the pin. And both of them just end up dead short and just completely screwed to like an elevated pitch shot. And it's funny how, again, once you start understanding the sort of patterns that and
Hmm.
trends that players have, you start noticing these things too. So I would challenge the viewers kind of the next time they play golf with their friends, just take a little notice on these front pins, and you'll be kind of surprised with just how predictable and how reliable that is. Because I mean, the nerd in me even factors these types of things in when I'm like picking partners for Wolf, and
Hmm.
that's a whole separate conversation. But like, I'll literally look at the flag before when it's my turn to pick, and I'll be like, okay, like I kind of can pre-plan what's going to happen and how it's going to unfold. And again, like I'm sure that's me overthinking things, but you just can't help but start noticing when you're like looking into data like this at every level, and you just see these trends and these
Uh-huh.
surefire mistakes that that players at all levels are making.